We begin with breaking news this noon hour. A tragedy at a North York intersection. A pedestrian struck and killed by a dump truck. The CTV News chopper is live over the scene at Wilson Avenue and Collinson Boulevard in North York. Good afternoon. The elderly woman was hit by the truck just over an hour ago.
Paramedics say she was pronounced dead at the scene. CTV's Sean Leathong joins us live with the details. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, I'm standing not far from the intersection where it happened. We are going to get an update right now from Toronto Police Duty Inspector Brian Maslowski. I'll step back out of frame and you go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brian Maslowski. I'm a duty senior officer with the Toronto Police Service, here to give you an update on the scene behind me. Today at 10:44 a.m., police received a call and responded to a personal injury motor vehicle collision here near Wilson Avenue and Collinson Boulevard. It is reported that an 81-year-old female was walking through the crosswalk northbound on Wilson Avenue when she was struck by a right-turning dump truck behind me that was turning right on Wilson Avenue eastbound. Citizens in the area, she was struck. Citizens in the area immediately attempted first aid, but unfortunately she succumbed to her injuries. As you can see, we have our traffic reconstructionist on scene to do some further investigation. If anyone was in the area of the 401 westbound off-ramp at Bathurst and Wilson Avenue at approximately 11:15 this morning, we'd ask you to please contact our traffic services at 416-808-1900. I'll take any questions.
Now, we see the truck is still on the scene. Is the driver cooperating in any word on any charges?
We're very early in the investigation, but I'm told that the driver is cooperating, and it's too early to tell about charges. As I mentioned, we're still reviewing video, we're still interviewing witnesses, and it's very early on in the investigation.
Have you been able to see any security footage or anything like that at this point?
There is security footage available, and we're just looking for more. Even if somebody was driving in the area with dash cam footage, we could always use that as well.
Is there any sense whether, I mean, it looks like they were crossing at a crosswalk, any sense on if anybody ran a light or anything like that?
Again, very early on in the investigation. Our traffic reconstructionists, they're experts at this, so we'll just wait before we pass judgment on it. But again, our hearts go out to the family of this woman who was struck, and we just ask people, especially, you know, with the weather, it's not summer yet, just to drive safely, take your time. I would just like to thank you all and have a good afternoon.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Duty Inspector Brian Maslowski, who was speaking from Toronto Police a little while ago. I actually did manage to see some of the security footage from earlier. Now, you can see the intersection behind me where this happened. In the security footage I saw, now the street that's near us is actually it's an exit from the 401. Now, in the video I saw, you could see the elderly woman trying to cross the street, and she appeared to have the light, and the truck slowly moves to the right before impacting the woman. Obviously a very tragic scene, and police are going to close this area off for quite some time while they investigate. We'll have more as long as when we can bring it to you at 5 o'clock and more again at 6 o'clock. But for now, I'll throw it back to you inside reporting live. I'm Sean Leathong.
All right. Thank you, Sean. And still to come, we're hearing there are indications a fire in Brampton is considered suspicious. That word comes from the fire chief at the scene. CTV's John Musselman will have that story.
In other news, the city of Toronto plows, look at them, they're lined up and they are ready to go with a major winter storm expected overnight on Wednesday into Thursday morning. Toronto is now under a special weather statement ahead of the arrival of a storm that could bring more than 15 centimeters of snow to the city. And if we take a live look at the skyline this afternoon, no snow to be seen yet anyway. Bright sunshine, certainly cool out there, so you'll want to keep that in mind if you have plans outdoors. Let's bring in Lindsay Morrison with a look at the current conditions and a look ahead as well. Lindsay.
Yeah, Michelle, this is, as they say, the calm before the storm. We're going to talk about today in just a moment, but I do want to mention that confidence is growing that this is going to be a high-impact winter storm here in southern Ontario. So much so that Environment Canada upgrading a winter weather travel advisory to a winter storm watch for areas as far south as Caledon, Newmarket and Uxbridge. We remain under that winter weather travel advisory here in Toronto. The storm is still developing, but this is a computer model of what's expected to happen. And depending on how this low tracks a little further to the north versus south, that's going to help determine the precipitation types and how much snow we get. Timing is tricky with this as well. We're going to talk all about that coming up. Here's our current satellite and radar imagery. It is -5 degrees in the city of Toronto right now, and we're forecasting a daytime high of -2. Enjoy today. Start planning ahead for tomorrow. We have lots to discuss. It's all ahead in your forecast. For now, Nathan and Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, we turn our attention to the Ontario election campaign.
With some of the appeal to voters today happening south of the border, with Doug Ford speaking in Washington, D.C. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with more. Siobhan.
Well, Doug Ford is appearing in his capacity as Premier before the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, delivering a speech and also participating in a fireside chat, really talking about the need to reinforce the friendship, the trade relationship between Canada and the U.S. At home, we did see Bonnie Crombie, the Liberal leader, make a new commitment to post-secondary institutions, promising more funding to keep those afloat. And Mike Schreiner is shoring up support for his deputy leader in Kitchener. Here's more of what we heard from the leaders today.
As the whole world is watching two closest friends about to wage an economic war against each other, the world is watching carefully. A lot of the world is saying, we're next. A lot of the world is sitting back and laughing. And I'll tell you who's sitting back and laughing is China.
I am not planning to increase tuition fees. We are planning to create 40,000 jobs, paid jobs, co-op positions, apprenticeship positions, internship programs in our businesses by providing those businesses with a tax cut. So a tax credit. So I'm very, very proud that we are going to cut the unemployment rate for our young people in half.
I think what separates Ashland and the Green Party from other parties is the fact that we're a party that's not about the leader's voice in the riding or the premier's voice in the riding. It's about Ashland being your advocate at Queen's Park.
NDP leader Marit Stiles is also in Kitchener today. She's been reiterating some key parts of her platform, focusing them on the Kitchener area, talking about things like her grocery rebate plan and a plan to add more family doctors in the province. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. And we have new numbers in the nightly polling by Nanos Research for CTV, showing the Ontario Liberals inching up in support in the province. Here's the trend line in the overnight since February 8th, according to the latest numbers. As of yesterday, the PCs have gained 0.2% support and are at 44% among decided voters. That is the blue line on the top. Then the Liberals are up 1% to 32.3%. New Democrats dropped nearly 2 points to 17.1%, while the Greens gained more than a half a point to sit at 4.6%.
There's some really interesting generational trends that we're seeing underneath the numbers. It's kind of like for the Progressive Conservatives and the Liberals, the older you get, the more likely you are to vote for either one of those parties. And then you have on the opposite side of the ledger, the New Democrats. Much more young people are much more likely to vote for the New Democrats, and kind of the likelihood to vote NDP goes down with age. So you've got a bit of a generational division there.
The Nanos survey finds just over 4 in 10 respondents believe Doug Ford is the best choice for Premier, followed by Bonnie Crombie at 25.1%, Marit Stiles at 13.7%, and Mike Schreiner at 5%. Just over 10% are unsure of who they preferred as Premier. Election Day in Ontario, mark your calendars, February 27th, and advance polls will be open from the 20th to the 22nd.
To City Hall now and the final debate on a proposed 6.9% property tax hike.
The cracks of a decade of underinvestment and neglect are clear. This is our common cause, what we need to fix together.
The mayor is making her case to the entire city council. And the mayor says the city has become unaffordable for many, and it's time to fix that.
Mayor Chow also outlined the city's first specific response to the U.S. tariff threat. CTV's City Hall reporter Natalie Johnson joins us now live from Council Chamber with the latest. Natalie.
That's right, Michelle. Taking Tesla off the table for EVs that are subsidized by the city for Toronto taxi drivers is one of the ideas being debated here in the chamber today. That is a suggestion from the mayor on how to fight the Trump tariffs. It is all part of a big discussion about whether to approve the $19 billion spending plan for the year ahead.
After weeks of debate over the city's financial future, the mayor was set to defend her big budget.
The 2025 budget is rebuilding our city together.
The spending plan before council today includes a TTC fare freeze, expanded student nutrition programs, increased library hours, and more traffic wardens, though it does come at a cost. A total 6.9% residential property tax hike that would cost the average homeowner $268 more this year, on the heels of a 9.5% increase last year.
When property taxes were increased by 10%, Mayor Chow said that it was because of the fiscal hole she inherited. Unfortunately, it seems like she spent the last year digging her own hole, and now she needs taxpayers' help to get out of it.
It all comes as council and all of Canada braces for the economic impacts of the Trump tariffs. The mayor announcing a plan today to remove Tesla from the list of electric vehicles eligible for grants for Toronto taxi drivers.
I see no reason why the city should subsidize the purchase of Tesla.
Certainly the enormous damage that Elon Musk is doing to the world through his work with President Trump is really, really harmful to Toronto, to Canada.
Councillor Brad Bradford, meanwhile, pitching a plan to combat the looming trade war through a 25% property tax cut for industry and small business.
One of the things that we can do is create a more competitive environment by decreasing the tax burden, decreasing red tape and regulation.
A plan that would be funded by drawing $30 million from the city's so-called rainy day reserves.
This is not just a rainy day. This is an economic hurricane. And with respect to the reserve accounts, I want to remind all of you here and folks in Toronto, last year Mayor Chow raided the reserve accounts to the tune of $386 million.
One should not take money from a stabilization reserve.
So just to be clear, then, do you support the spirit of the tax cut if it can be funded?
Oh gosh, no.
Thank you. The fate of Toronto tax dollars gets decided in this chamber today.
As for what else might get added to this year's spending plan, well, there is about $3 million that is already built into the budget as a wiggle room for councillors to decide how to spend or save. We'll bring the latest tonight at 5 and 6 o'clock. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. And Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Meantime, there is a rally being held outside City Hall in a show of support for the mayor's tax hike. This is a live look just outside the front doors of City Hall there in Nathan Phillips Square. The organizers say the tax increase can be used to fund vital community services such as housing, transit, and student nutrition programs.
We're turning now to the latest on those U.S. tariffs and at the AI summit in Paris. Prime Minister Trudeau spoke today about the new levies against Canadian steel and aluminum.
We will work with the American administration and highlight that imports of Canadian steel and aluminum create thousands, if not millions, of jobs and support families across the United States. We have been doing things together in an extraordinarily integrated way for many, many years, and we will look to continue to work with our closest ally and partner. We should be doing more together, not fighting with each other, but Canadians will stand up strongly and firmly if we need to.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order yesterday to implement 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum beginning March 12th. Today, Trudeau said the tariffs will hurt both countries. He spoke with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance today about the impact duties on steel would have. Trump is expected to sign more executive orders later this afternoon.
The first tariffs on steel and aluminum will affect two critical materials used in car parts manufacturing, building, and construction.
And as CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports, the U.S. move could be devastating for both Canadians and Americans.
The hum of Canadian manufacturing dealt a deafening blow.
It's certainly concerning, and it's going to have a big impact on our business.
Appearing to rule with an iron fist, U.S. President Donald Trump explained his reasoning for adding Canadian steel and aluminum to his hit list.
We make it in the United States. We don't need it to be made in Canada. We'll have the jobs. That's why Canada should be our 51st state.
The new tariffs are scheduled to take hold on March 4th, though the effects on Canadian industry are already being felt.
In recent weeks, just the threat of tariffs has been problematic for steel and aluminum manufacturers. We're at Conquest Steel here in Toronto, and these raised garden beds, they were destined for a client in the United States. The order has since been canceled.
That's certainly a big challenge we have to overcome. We're trying to work on creative solutions.
Canada is the United States' largest supplier of steel and aluminum. In 2024, 23% of all steel imported into the U.S. came from Canada, and 60% of all aluminum. Federal opposition leaders have been quick to condemn Trump's executive order.
We will retaliate in kind with matching tariffs on American aluminum and steel.
But we can't be vulnerable to the whims of a president who wants to attack one of his closest allies.
In 2018, the previous Trump administration also hit Canada with tariffs on steel and aluminum. Ottawa fired back with targeted tariffs on items like Kentucky bourbon and trading cards. That led to the eventual signing of the Canada-United States-Mexico trade agreement, which Trump called terrific.
And we got there. It's great for all of our countries.
Rahim Mulu is now envisioning a future for his company that may no longer include exports to the United States as part of his business plan.
I think you can either throw in the towel or use a towel to wipe the sweat off your face and get back to work.
Here at Conquest Steel, 2 of their 5 press brake machines behind me have been shut down. That's roughly 40% of their daily output now on hold. It's a small example of the challenging reality facing companies across the country.
And that's CTV's Adrian Gobriel. Meanwhile, Trump is hosting Jordan's King Abdullah II in the White House today. The King and Queen posed with U.S. President and the First Lady, Melania Trump, outside the Executive Mansion following the royal couple's arrival this morning. The 2 leaders then headed inside for the traditional photo op in the Oval Office before meeting behind closed doors.
You have done an incredible job on the refugees and the camps and taking care of people. And I just want to say, while our nations have a very good relationship, we now have a great relationship, but the job you do on a humanitarian basis is fantastic. And I would like to thank you very much.
Sir, thank you. And sir, if I can thank you and the United States and the people of America for all the support you've given our country. If the rest of the world just took a little bit of your humility and your grace to help us, we'd be in a lot better position. But if it wasn't for the United States, just on behalf of myself and my people, thank you so much for all that you've done for us.
King Abdullah's visit to Washington is at a pivotal time in the Middle East. There are concerns about whether the current ceasefire will hold as Israel and Hamas accuse each other of violating the truce. And Trump has threatened to cut aid to Jordan if it does not resettle Palestinians as part of the president's proposal to redevelop Gaza.
President Trump has revealed new details on his plan to take over Gaza. He now says Palestinians would not be allowed to return. He made the comments in a Fox News interview.
Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land. Would the Palestinians have the right to return? Spent. No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing.
Trump threatened to withhold aid to Jordan and Egypt if they don't take in millions of Palestinians. But both countries have rejected that idea, and Hamas has said it would not turn over control of Gaza.
If all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off, and let hell break out.
Trump has also issued that ultimatum after Hamas said the next hostage release scheduled for Saturday was being postponed. It blamed Israel for violating terms of the deal by not allowing aid to enter the enclave, delaying the return of displaced people to northern Gaza, and continuing shelling and gunfire. Israel calls Hamas's announcement a complete violation of the ceasefire.
Back here at home in Brampton, firefighters have been on the scene of a fire since 1 a.m. at a home near Kennedy Road and Queen Street.
Paramedics say one adult was injured and taken to hospital for treatment, and police and the fire marshal are investigating. CTV's John Musselman is at the scene this hour and joins us live with more. John.
Well, Nathan, neighbors tell us it was a pretty intense fire. It broke out around 1:30 this morning. We'll just show you some video here from last night. Fire crews from Brampton were on the scene fairly quickly. It looks like it started at the front of the home when firefighters arrived on the scene. There was quite a bit of flame and smoke rising right up to the second story. Now, our understanding is that one person was in the home. He was able to get out safely with some minor burns. The cause here, of course, is under investigation. Neighbors say there was at least one person living in the home. May have been two others a few months ago, but in the last few months, just one person living in that home. We did have a chance to speak to a couple of neighbors as well as the fire chief in Brampton. Here's what they had to tell us just a short time ago.
There was a lot of smoke coming out through the window. I didn't see the fire, and then my husband seen the firemen punching out the top window.
We got woken up around 1:15 by one officer and one fireman banging on our door to come out because there was a fire.
The OFM gets notified. There's a series of different criteria. So large dollar loss fires, suspicious fires, explosions, things along those lines. So there's a whole host of criteria.
Now, there's quite a bit of damage in the interior of the home. Peel Regional Police are stationed here in front of the home during this investigation. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. We're getting a sense of just how well or not well electric vehicles perform in harsh Canadian winters. CTV's Scott Hurst joins me now. Scott, this is interesting. Which EV had the best range and which model had the worst?
Nathan, of course, we all know winter can be extreme, and for many of us, it might feel like it can last way too long. So electric vehicle range is critically important, particularly in the winter months. And so CAA put that to the test, and here's what it found. It found that the Chevy Silverado EV and the Polestar 2 drove just 14% less than their posted value. Test the Model 3 went a bit further, but lost more compared to its posted range. Here's a look at the top 5 according to this CAA winter driving test. And the temperatures weren't even extreme Canadian cold weather temperatures. They were tested in temperature range from about -7 to -15 degrees, and they were driven until the battery ran completely out of power. Now, it's important to note that Canadian EV ranges are based on overall year-round numbers, so not just the extreme winter months, but also in the spring and summer when driving conditions are much more favorable. So it found that across the board, when they tested a handful of the top-selling electric vehicles in Canada, the vehicles drove anywhere, Nathan, from 15 to 39% less than their official posted range.
So all pretty much underperforming to some extent. What's the main takeaway on winter conditions and EVs?
Yeah, bottom line is that winter conditions will affect the battery range. That is pretty clear. And of course, when it comes to winter driving performance for Canadians, it is critical, it is essential, and when it comes to some of the more extreme winter driving conditions, potentially life-saving. One of the worst things to happen is to have your electric vehicle run out of range, or any vehicle for that matter, to break down in some of the worst driving conditions. And in a recent poll from CAA, more than 2/3 of Canadians said that the drop in range during winter is a top barrier to buying an electric vehicle. So those are Canadians who don't yet own electric vehicles, and among EV owners in Canada, more than 65% say they've experienced lower battery range in extreme cold weather conditions. So with this test, CAA says it'd like to see a made-in-Canada standardized labeling system for electric vehicles that includes winter driving performance rather than just a single average, and that'll give Canadian consumers much more information in terms of how these electric vehicles will perform during these winter months, which, as I mentioned off the top, Nathan, many people often say it lasts too long.
Yeah, got that right. CTV Scott Hurst on that EV performance test in cold weather. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
A case of bird flu has been identified in a Canada goose at Rouge National Urban Park.
And now there are concerns other animals may be impacted by the virus. CTV's Raheem Ladani has more.
Within the vast forests and creeks of one of North America's largest urban parks, officials have confirmed a case of bird flu and believe there are at least 5 others, all among Canadian geese.
It was like really rapid all of a sudden, and we haven't had any reports since then, which is good, but we know it's still there.
People walking with pets in Rouge National Urban Park are being advised to keep dogs on leash and away from wildlife. The outbreak comes after 2 snowy owls were found dead near Tommy Thompson Park late last year, also infected with a strain of avian flu.
There is mass outbreaks outside of our park boundary that we're really concerned about as well. And not just like Canada geese, like we've had swans suspected in past years.
Human infection with avian flu is rare, according to officials. However, last November in British Columbia, a 13-year-old girl was Canada's first H5N1 patient and spent weeks in intensive care. Currently in the United States, cases of the highly contagious virus are soaring. At least 67 people have been infected since 2024, and 1 person has died.
In humans at the moment, we are not in the midst of an epidemic in Canada, nor are we in the midst of a pandemic, but it's of course something that we have to take very seriously and watch very closely.
South of the border, bird flu outbreaks have spread nationwide, with strains detected in cattle herds and poultry markets, which has led to the surging price of eggs. According to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, there is no evidence the virus found in U.S. dairy cows has expanded into Canada. The CFIA says avian influenza is not a food safety concern, citing there is no evidence to suggest eating cooked poultry or eggs could transmit the virus to humans.
Avian influenza, as the name applies, is in birds. It's in migratory birds that fly all over the world.
The Toronto Zoo says it has been taking precautionary measures against bird flu for years, including separating guests from susceptible animals. And so recent cases of the virus in Rouge National Urban Park have not changed its approach. Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
The Invictus Games kicked off this past weekend in Vancouver. Prince Harry is in BC and is the founder of the Games.
CTV News chief anchor Omar Sachedina had a chance to speak with Harry and talk about the growing popularity of sports for wounded military members. Omar asked Harry if he ever thinks about the lasting impact of the Games.
A decade after having started these Games, do you think about how transformational this experience has been for these athletes? What a difference you've made?
First, it's what a difference we've made. You know, 10 years ago, we created the platform to give every one of them the opportunity to shine and to be recognized for the sacrifices and the service that they've given. So, you know, as I continue to say over and over again, I wish we weren't in this position 10 years later when there are so many people that need the Games. But yeah, no, I think about it a lot. I think about it when I'm not here with them. You know, we do these games every 2 years, and the last Games was a year and a half ago in Düsseldorf. And in between the Games, I'm constantly thinking about, you know, the new stories. Who are we going to get to meet this next time? What is the development? What is the growth of the people that we met a year ago? In some instances, some of these people I met 10 years ago, and they're back round again, either as a competitor or as part of the training staff. So the amount of growth and healing that you witness is quite extraordinary. And some individuals who were physically shaking because of post-traumatic stress or just putting themselves in a really uncomfortable situation are now individuals who are showing and leading the way for the rest of these competitors who are coming into this for the first time. So we're just one big happy family helping each other out, which is great. And at the same time, demonstrating to so many people watching in the stands and watching at home that what you thought was impossible is actually possible.
And you can watch Omar's full interview with Prince Harry this Thursday night at 10:30 on CTV. Lindsay.
Well, one of the reasons why tomorrow's winter storm could be so impactful is the timing of it. Not one, but 2 commutes are expected to be impacted. Tonight, though, it's a bit of a different story. We have a few flurries, but nothing measurable as far as snow. Sunset time will be about 5:42 p.m. Tomorrow and into Thursday, we are looking at significant snow potentially, maybe upwards of 15 centimeters in Toronto. This all depends on the track of the low. If it tracks a little further north, we will introduce some mixing. If the low tracks a little further south, we could get snowfall amounts like this. We'll show you what the models are indicating at this point, plus what you need to know about another round of snow this weekend. That's coming up after the break.
All right, talking about the weather forecast. Today, not bad. It's kind of a typical winter day, but be concerned about tomorrow, especially those like ourselves who work a little bit later into the evening.
I think we'll be longing for conditions like today when we get later in the week because, yeah, we have another dumping of snow. We got snow over the weekend, But this is going to be different. Help us understand that.
Yeah, so once again, it's a system snow. It's not lake effect, so widespread areas are going to be impacted. But what makes this one different from the weekend snow is that it's going to be heavier, wetter. We're also experiencing or going to experience some very strong winds, which will reduce visibility, blow some of that snow around. And then Thursday, in addition to strong winds, we're going to see the temperature plummet. So a little bit of freezing is expected to happen too. Lots to discuss. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Now, I know it is a little cliche, but today is the calm before the storm. We had a lovely little sunrise there this morning as captured by our CTV News chopper. You may have noticed that we've been seeing quite a few storms all of a sudden recently in southern Ontario, and there is a reason for that. Part of it is the position of the jet stream. It's just acting like a conveyor belt and bringing one low after another from Texas, Colorado to us here in southern Ontario. We've got colder air competing with milder air, and that's going to make things interesting as this storm arrives. Depending on the track of it, we could get into some mixed precipitation or we might get entirely snow. Let's show you how this plays out. First, satellite and radar. All is pretty calm right now. We're anticipating a few flurries. There is one system stateside. That one is going to miss us. You'll see it just make its way off to the east there. But the next one is developing right now over Texas. That's why we call it a Texas low. And it's headed toward us here in southern Ontario for tomorrow. Another reason this incoming storm is different from the weekend storm, the timing of it. It's not happening on a weekend. It's happening weekday, and yes, it could impact 2 commutes. First, though, tomorrow morning, just want to mention a little bit of lake effect snow possible from perhaps Etobicoke over toward Hamilton. Then the real heavy stuff starts to arrive. There's about 4 p.m. on Wednesday. So again, just in time for this afternoon drive, evening commute. It becomes really heavy as we make our way a little later into the evening. Look how widespread this snow is. And with the latest model runs, it looks as though a lot of this mixed precip is going to remain over Lake Erie. Best chance of the mixing happening is going to be along that north shoreline and into Niagara, but perhaps for the West GTA as well. But at this point, heavy snow expected through the overnight hours. Still, as most are waking up on Thursday morning, we're going to be in this, but then the low is going to pull away. Behind that, we could get into some gusty winds and some lake effect snow. And again, the temperature is expected to fall. Now, lots to talk about here. I'm going to go through it a little bit quickly. About 20 centimeters of snow is a possibility. Winds are expected to be very strong over the next couple of days here. Let's see if we can skip ahead to your 7-day forecast just to show you what is expected to happen. -2 degrees for your high. That's for today. Here's a look at tonight, -7. And then travel conditions tomorrow are expected to be poor at times. Maybe avoid non-essential travel if you can Wednesday overnight into Thursday morning. Friday's Valentine's Day. It's looking pleasant, but there is Saturday and the next round of snow. Nathan, I'll send things over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. There's a new addition greeting commuters traveling through Union Station. The busy transit hub is kicking off the 2025 cultural season with 2 public art exhibitions celebrating 7 Black artists. And CTV's Jessica Smith is at Toronto Union this noon hour and joins us live with the details. Jess.
Nathan, the exhibition just opened today. Well, officially opens tomorrow for the public, but we're getting a sneak peek today, and there have been so many people walking through. You know, Union Station is a hub, and there are hundreds of thousands of people every year that come through, and now there's a new exhibition here, a part of that 2024 Culture Series. And I'm joined by Jordan Suk. You're one of the featured artists. You're the guest artist here, and we're standing in front of one of your pieces. But talk to me about what it means to be a part of this exhibition, not only for Black History Month, but carrying right through into the summer.
It's really great. I'm really appreciative for the opportunity, and it's really something where I get to express myself in the most free and open way, get to express my community, but also to really speak to art as well. And I think it's something that is going to be great for the community, being able to walk through Union Station. It's lively, you know, meeting viewers where they're at, whether they're going to work or, you know, going to school. It's a thing where they're being able to experience art in an unconventional but new way.
So we're going to move out of the way here so we can see your piece. So we have a couple different things going on. We have this big, beautiful butterfly, but you also have works of actual butterflies that you had to, is it hand paint?
Hand paint.
How difficult was that?
Very difficult. A lot of man hours that went into it, but there's this fragility that like happens with the work when you're creating it. The wings are so delicate and the paint is so heavy that like you're sort of like balancing like life and death in many ways of, you know, this thing that lived once, but then you're giving it a new life and turning it into art. And there's this sort of transcendent feeling that happens when you do that. And that's really what I want the viewer to feel when they're looking at this sort of work.
What does it mean to you to be included in this exhibition? There are some really great artists here, some emerging artists, some established artists. What does it make you feel to know that people are getting to see some of these people for the first time in their work and also enjoy your creativity here?
I mean, it's amazing. And, you know, I want people to see the work and feel inspired and feel like the best version of themselves and maybe even see themselves within the work. And I think that's really what it's about, is really finding a way to connect to the viewer in a way that is meaningful to them. And so it's not really about me, but it's really about the community and the people that walk through Union Station every day. I love Toronto and I love the people that live here. So it's something that is my gift in a way to them.
Well, Jordan, it is fantastic. I'm still kind of taking it all in. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your work with us here at the station and everybody walking through Union. We'll have more news and weather updates coming up after the break.
A woman who lost more than $50,000 trying to find love has a warning.
She turned to a psychic after a romance failed to blossom. CTV's Pat Foran has this cautionary tale.
Do not start anything, because once you start it, it's a trap.
Joanne Whalen of Whitby went through a marriage separation, and in the fall of 2023, she went to a psychic, something she's done many times before.
I kind of find it fun entertainment, really. Yeah, I've been doing it for like 30 years probably.
Whalen told the psychic she was interested in a new romance.
When she did the reading, she found there was a man. I said, yes, there's a man I like at the gym. And she said, well, I can bring this man closer to you. And I was like, okay, for $550.
Intrigued, she paid the money, but what followed in the months ahead were requests for more payments to make the love connection happen.
He transferred $12,000 to $15,000, but she said she preferred cash. So I was dropping off a lot of cash at her house.
Whalen says she was also asked to buy gold bars at Costco to be used in ceremonies. In total, she gave the psychic more than $50,000 over the course of a year, but the romance never happened.
Everything was going so great. I said to her, why isn't anything happening for me? All I'm doing is paying you money. I said, I'm paying you thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm not getting nothing.
Whalen now believes she was misled and wants her money back.
I was so trapped in it mentally because I was so scared.
Whalen gave the money to a psychic named Julia, who has an office over an Oshawa flooring store. When we went there, the door was locked, but she answered the phone.
But she's saying that she feels she was misled into giving you $50,000.
The psychic said she provided services Whalen was willing to pay for.
She didn't complete the work. That's the problem. Everything she wanted, I gave her. She wanted different services, and that's what I gave her.
However, Julia told us she is now willing to give Whalen all her money back.
She's not happy. She's not satisfied, so I'm giving her money back.
Whalen says so far she's only received a refund of $2,000, but she wants the rest. She also wanted to share her story to warn others.
This is happening to me, and I'm just like, I can't even believe that I'm part of it.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Improving health care in Ontario is one of the main themes of the campaign trail leading up to the provincial election.
The politicians are having their say, but what do frontline doctors and nurses say needs to be done? To talk about this, we're joined by President of the Ontario Medical Association, Dr. Dominic Novak. Doctor, great to have you with us. This is such an important topic at a pivotal moment. It's too bad tariffs are kind of taking away some of that steam on the campaign trail. But certainly there's a problem here because all the leaders are promising to deliver doctors. It definitely sounds good, but how do we get there?
Yeah, this is a defining moment for us in Ontario. We can either keep on going to where we are, where nearly 4.4 million people are going to be without a family doctor by the end of next year, or we could get our healthcare system back on track and rebuild that foundation to get everybody the care that we all deserve.
That sounds glorious. Why are we in this situation? Is it money that's going to fix this problem? The Liberals and the NDP, they're offering guarantees of doctors. Bonnie Crombie, for example, by the end of 4 years. The PCs are pledging money, but also they have Jane Philpott in the mix as well. What do you think needs to happen here?
Look, there have to be a number of solutions on the table. A big one is connecting everybody to a family doctor. And the way to get there actually has to be some more smart funding in the healthcare system. We know that the support family doctors have financially for their practices is far out of date. Meanwhile, we have had population growth, we've had complexity, people are living longer and sicker. So the needs are different in our healthcare system right now. So to get to this world where everybody has a family doctor, we actually do need to take a hard look at modernizing how we fund and value family doctors in this province.
It's my understanding that not everybody who goes through medical school is eyeing family practice. Why do people not want to be family doctors?
Yeah, and I work with medical students and residents, and I get to meet doctors from all across the province. A big deal is that financial sustainability of having a family practice. People just don't see it as a viable career option when they could do a number of other things in service to their community. Another big part of this is that 19 hours weekly of unnecessary red tape, bureaucracy that doctors are doing per week. And let's get that off the plates of doctors. Let's make the financing sustainable again in Ontario to be a family doctor and to have a career as a family doctor in this province. And again, that'll get us to a world where more of us have family doctors.
Now, the OMA, as I understand it, is not endorsing any one particular party, but is there a party that looks to have a better game plan at this stage?
No, that's up for the voters to decide. What I would say is if you're meeting candidates, if you're going to healthcare debates in your community, we all need to be asking questions about healthcare. That means, what's your plan for a healthcare system and getting it back on track? What's your plan for getting everybody connected to a family doctor? And what's your plan for not just recruiting doctors, but keeping the ones that we already have in our system?
It's nerve-wracking to look to the future if our leaders don't address this. What do we have in front of us down the line if this problem isn't addressed?
Already 1 in 4 nearly without a family doctor. This has real life impacts. A few months ago, I was meeting with a person who hadn't been able to find a family doctor in over 6 years. They were bouncing around hospitals, emergency rooms, pharmacies, walk-in clinics, ended up having a delayed, completely preventable breast cancer diagnosis in the emergency room. That's what people experience when they can't get that foundation level of care. That is a family doc. What we're asking is for the foundations for everybody. That means a family doctor for everybody. Let's keep emergency departments open, and let's make sure that our waits are reasonable in Ontario again.
Oh, if we could get those wait times down. Indeed. Dr. Dominic Novak, OMA President, you've given us a lot to think about as we make our decision. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure.
Quick break, more when we return.
The Four Nations Face-Off tournament begins tomorrow, and this morning, Austin Matthews and his American teammates practiced at the Bell Centre in Montreal. The Maple Leafs captain was asked what it'll be like playing against friend and Leaf line mate Mitch Marner, who's suiting up for Canada.
Yeah, he's a special player. He's a great player. You know, you look around at all these teams' rosters, there's a lot of firepower. So, you know, it's competitive. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, I think, for the players and the fans. You know, it'd be a little bit weird playing against, you know, guys, teammates, close friends of mine that I've been playing with for the last 9 years. So it'll be interesting. But, you know, in the end, I think we're all competitive. Everybody wants to win.
Matthews says he doesn't know if there really is any favorite to win the tournament. He believes every team has a chance. Round-robin play begins tomorrow with a matchup between Canada and Sweden. The USA's first game is Thursday versus Finland. Matthews and the Americans will then face their rivals from north of the border on Saturday.
And staying on the ice, the Toronto Scepters return to action tonight with some changes to their lineup.
Quick touches, and they score!
The fourth-place Scepters haven't played since February 1st, mainly because of a break in the PWHL schedule. Tonight, they host the Minnesota Frost at Coca-Cola Coliseum, and they will welcome back PWHL MVP Natalie Spooner, who's been activated from long-term injured reserve. But the team will be without star forward Sarah Nurse, who was injured playing with Team Canada last week. The Scepters have added German forward Laura Kluge to the lineup to replace Nurse. Quick break. We will see you shortly.
As the saying goes, every dog has its day, especially when it involves live music.
Makes me smile, and I think that's what music is. We want to travel as far as possible. If you call it accessibility and diversity, that's what we are.
For the first time, the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra welcomed service dogs in training to their rehearsal. Now, the goal is to prepare them for large crowds and live music.
Okay.
Great way to prepare. Yeah.
Look how well they did. I could have never brought one of my dogs anywhere.
I mean, mine would have been out of control.
Yeah, amazing. Sweet sounds. Okay, let's get caught up. Weather-wise, we're okay now, but we do need to be aware of what's coming.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to love the sound of this, but we do have another winter storm on the way. In fact, there is a winter storm watch in place issued by Environment Canada for northern sections of the GTA and much of eastern Ontario. We remain under a winter weather travel advisory here in Toronto. This is what the storm looks like. This is what we're anticipating is going to happen. A huge swath of snow beginning late day Wednesday, I should say late afternoon Wednesday. It could start a little bit earlier than the evening, continuing overnight into Thursday. Then it tapers off, but we could have a good helping of snow to clean up. Temperature plummets behind that, could lead to some freezing. Watch for some very strong winds with this storm as well. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, good to know. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubin.
And I'm Nathan Dowder. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.